You've been watching decentralized finance for a while now. Seen some people make a fortune, others lose everything. You want to get involved now, but the complexity is insane. The risk, unbearable. Let's face it, you have no time to specialize in decentralized apps, and no money to lose either. Well, there is an easy way to earn returns from DeFi. A solution with no trading involved, no hassle. A place where you're always in control. Just deposit funds and watch your savings grow. We're talking about an app. We're talking about the Yield app. DeFi banking in your pocket.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fridays with Yield app. Today, I am really excited to have some amazing guests with me. I have Camilla Russo, who is the editor of the Defiant, what I believe is one of the, if not the leading newsletters in the DeFi space, and Ash Pugh from New Kids on the Blockchain. Say hello to everybody, guys.
Hey guys, happy Friday, nearly the weekend.
And thank you, Yola, for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And of course, we have our illustrious CEO, Tim Frost.
No, thanks, Rebecca, and Ash, Camila for joining us tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm really excited for this episode. We're going to be talking all about DeFi and where it is right now. Of course, the provocative title is DeFi dead? We're fairly confident it's not dead, considering we're about 111 million, I believe, TVL at the moment. I'm sure maybe one of you might correct me on that statistic. But we really want to kind of find out what the state of DeFi is right now. The last year has been enormous for DeFi. We had the DeFi summer of 2020, an enormous period of growth, unlike we've seen really anywhere in the crypto space or maybe even the finance space at large. So, you know, kind of where do you guys feel we are at the moment in the DeFi space? Camilla, can I begin with you?
Sure. Well, yeah, like you're saying, growth has been really spectacular in the past year. So right now there is 70 billion of value locked in DeFi. That's up from just under 3 billion a year ago. So, I mean, it's multiplied many times over. It seems like we are slowing down if you zoom in, because just a couple of months ago, TVL had crossed 100 billion. So that was a nice milestone. But then we immediately kind of gave some of those gains back as the wider crypto market corrected. But you know, look at the broader time frame, and growth has just been spectacular, and not just TVL, but recently there's this other metric, wallets used interacting with DeFi applications, and that crossed 3 million. Of course, you have to consider people have more than one wallet, so it's not like an exact metric of users. You know, maybe divide that by two or you know, whatever. But if you just look at kind of the graph, it's just like exponential shooting up. So looking at any of the metrics, you see DeFi continues to grow. People continue to come to the space. So I think, you know, it's only been 2 years, or 2-3 years if you count kind of MakerDAO as like the start of DeFi. So we're very, very much at the very early beginnings of this new financial system. There's a lot of work to do, but I think we're off to a great start with already many of the kind of core financial services we expect from traditional finance being replicated in this parallel, more open financial system. So I think it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the key, isn't it? Kind of that we're starting to see kind of banking on the blockchain through DeFi, which is one of the most exciting parts. And yes, it was billion, I meant to say, rather than million. So thank you for correcting.
No worries.
It's much bigger than million. We're in the billions now. I mean, Ash, would you like to come in and sort of give us your state of play, where you think things are at the moment after such a huge period of growth in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to, first of all, sort of step back and think that it's only really 18 months ago that it was so dizzyingly complicated. I've chatted to Tim before about that meme with the guys in the nightclub trying to explain to his girlfriend what DeFi is. And it's, if you take Aave and do this, put it into compound. It was so complicated, really a tiny percentage of people even understood how to do it. And where we've come in that short period of time is, I think, remarkable. It clearly couldn't keep on escalating at the rate it was. So I think it had to take a breath. I think also, you know, there is regulatory issues that need to catch up to allow, you know, DeFi to move forward. There was a really good article in the Financial Times today sort of saying, look, crypto needs to get on top of this regulation stuff if it wants to go mainstream fully. So I think ultimately it's been a really exciting journey so far. And I would say at the moment, DeFi is taking a breath to work out the next stage, as opposed to the idea of some people saying DeFi is over, DeFi is dead. Clearly, when people have tasted the returns in DeFi versus 0.1% in their bank, it's not going to go anywhere soon.
I mean, that is the key, isn't it? I mean, Tim, what's your view? I mean, you know, you obviously launched Yield App in August last year, right in the midst of the kind of DeFi summer. How do you feel things have progressed since then?
Well, more than anything, I think the industry is, you know, very, very healthy at the moment. So, you know, we've seen that, you know, DeFi is sustainable. And so, you know, we've, you know, gone through some different market cycles from, you know, last summer, which started to bring so much attention to DeFi, to this big wave we've just, you know, seen with a lot of new all-time highs. And even with this correction, we've, you know, the value locked in DeFi is, you know, quite strong and sustainable. And if anything, you've seen like a bit of a cleansing. So people are starting to understand what actually really is DeFi, and it's not, you know, 3,000% APY, you know, yield farming and the newest hottest thing. And so, you know, the more people are learning, and you know, people like Camila, you know, I commend you obviously, because, you know, it's really helping to, you know, educate people on you know, what is actually being built. And so, and as Ash said, I think we're waiting for like that next wave of innovation and wait to see where it's actually going to be coming from. But I would say the industry couldn't be healthier.
Yeah.
I can't believe when you said August then, sorry to interrupt, but only August last year. You guys seem to have done so much in such a ridiculously short time. I mean, I think crypto is measured almost in dog years, isn't it? You think back to sort of last August, and it seems like years have passed with everything that you guys have, you know, been up to.
Well, yeah, I mean, from mid-August last year, about 11 months ago, was the day we said we're gonna build Yield App. So we have done a lot, but you know, you got to tell our community, because they're still waiting for more. So and we're working hard every day to deliver more. So absolutely, we're not even close to done.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with crypto, the world of crypto. I mean, it just moves so fast, and things are so different. I mean, very recently, we hired a writer from the traditional finance world, and she was looking at some figures, and she couldn't believe that this was like the 3 months figures. And then she referred to the Ethereum fund, which we launched in March, as recently launched. I'm like, no, not in crypto. That's not recently launched. That's like a year ago, you know. So things do move extremely fast. I mean, in terms of why we've seen this kind of slowing down, I mean, I think a few of you already said, you know, it's perhaps just a natural part of this kind of growing process. But I mean, yields have definitely compressed. I mean, I looked at Aave the other day, and those yields are much lower than they were a few months ago. I mean, Camila, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, why do you feel that you're seeing that kind of yield compression at the moment? Oh, you're on mute, Camila.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, I was saying it comes down to the prices of general crypto market coming down. So as the market corrects, people can expect lower returns from trading crypto. And so most of the yield in DeFi lending applications, or all of the yield, is coming from borrowers of those applications who are willing to pay very high rates to borrow crypto to trade more crypto. So when the market is up and hot, there's more demand to borrow and trade, and people are willing to pay higher rates to do that because they expect higher returns. When the market is going down, there are fewer people that are wanting to borrow to effectively go long and trade more crypto, and there's like less willingness to pay higher rates. So that's what we're seeing right now.
Okay. I mean, Ash, you're frequently talking about new projects, new launching projects. Have you seen a change in that over the last few months, or is it as busy as ever?
I think the interesting thing over the last few months for us is this time round, we had this kind of, the launch pad was really the big thing. It kind of, in the same way that ICOs, which we covered in our documentary, was the sort of big thing in 2017, early 2018, the launch pad sort of came out at the end of last year or towards the end of last year. And the idea being that projects, there's so many of them, the launchpad would incubate good projects, put some checks and balances in place, make sure that DeFi had been very Wild West in the past, rug pulls, sort of anonymity with the founders. So the launchpad came along and said, right, you can get involved and you can become part of this investment community. The problem is the launchpads started launching launchpads that started launching launchpads. And before too long, the quality control checks disappeared. And over the last kind of, couple of months, the projects just seem to be any old projects being thrown up now, as opposed to that quality of projects. So people that were willing to invest early stage on a lot of these projects are now kind of not willing to, because usually the vesting periods were over a few months, a percentage at TGE and then another percentage later, which in theory is a great idea because it allows projects to develop rather than pump and dump, sort of taking out their legs from under them. But I think we got to a point also this time around where a lot of people who'd made money in 2017 and then not realized it in 2018, myself included, said, if this happens again, next time we are going to take some profits. And I think you've seen people who've been burnt in the past actually being a bit more sensible this time around. Not everybody, but some people. And as that market heated up, I think a lot of people have taken profits out, which essentially is maybe hurt the last people coming in, the sort of retail investors who rushed in at the last minute, buying at the top. And the cycle then, seems to start again.
Yeah. I mean, it's also giving us a bit of a moment for pause for kind of other projects. I mean, Camilla, you were talking about a project that Uniswap has launched. So perhaps it's giving us a bit of a breathing space to launch more interesting initiatives. Could you talk a little bit more about the Uniswap project?
Well, that was I was talking about that project kind of in the context of what I view as a concerning trend in governance in DeFi. So I think this is kind of part of the growing pains in this sector. So there's this trend of going towards progressive decentralization. And so what that looks like effectively is projects are being led by token holders who vote in different governance decisions in what's called a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. And so Uniswap is going that direction. It launched its Uni token last year. It was already, I think. And so like token holders can vote, but token holders of Uni are pretty concentrated. You have big investment funds who own Uniswap, who represent a larger percentage of the voting power. You have big whales who own Uniswap. And so you see things like, the most recent thing is this education fund that was proposed, and it passed with only a handful of of votes. And then there was this like whole controversy of like how those tokens were sold, and just like lack of oversight. And in general, we're seeing kind of these growing pains, like projects having huge treasuries, like, you know, Uniswap's treasuries like is into the billions, I think. And then other smaller projects, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars in treasury after the big run up in the past few months. And then, you know, the danger of them becoming effectively slush funds, like with very little oversight and just like a handful of wallets controlling how those funds are being spent. So I think that's something that's definitely something I'm watching in DeFi, because I think there needs to be just like better governance mechanisms so that it doesn't turn into a plutocracy and we have something that's similar or worse than in traditional finance. So something to watch. Definitely.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? To not have that kind of thing happen in traditional finance. I mean, Tim, last time we were talking about kind of whales and whale activity in the space and kind of what that means for cryptocurrency and DeFi. I mean, do you have any thoughts on perhaps the overweight influence that some users might have in this space?
Well, definitely. There are definitely the kind of market leaders in the DeFi. So large funds, you know, Alameda in particular, you know, we a lot of people watch, including our portfolio team. And it's also, it's a lot of indicators that are kind of signaling to the market, especially on you know, what's happening, the newest protocols, you know, it's so there's, you know, they do move the market without a doubt. And, you know, overall, I think it is almost an unspoken signal that you kind of get in these markets that you don't probably have in, you know, traditional markets, because, you know, everything is visible on chain.
Right. I mean, and the regulation point, that's kind of probably an important one as well. I mean, we've seen some headlines recently around, you know, Binance and the trouble they're having with regulation, and generally that kind of direction for cryptocurrency. Does anyone just jump in? Does anyone have any thoughts on kind of where we're going in terms of regulation within either external or internal? Any big things that you think are coming up?
I think one thing from our side is when we were filming back in 2017, one of the big questions that we were sort of talking to people about is, will regulation stifle innovation? And I think that's the two sort of crushing forces, is can you find a way where the two can work together? Because clearly we're dealing with an incredibly powerful technology which people don't fully understand, you know, the full potential of yet, but that goes directly against a lot of the traditional world. So I mean, obviously since 2017, we've seen much more regulatory kind of coming in and lots more kind of talk about that, how it's going to come together and the blending of those CeFi and DeFi worlds. But even talking to accountants at the moment, when you're trying to do crypto taxes, you know, a lot of this stuff, HMRC in the UK doesn't even know where to begin with. So, you know, when it comes to that side of things as well, that's hugely complicated. So I think it needs to catch up somehow, but it needs to be done in a way that I'm sure the sort of anarchists from the old school crypto hate the idea of regulation and hate the idea of KYC, and there's this constant battle going on there. But I think if we're going to get to a point where DeFi is mainstream, it's going to need to work together with regulators and find some sort of common ground.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you know, Camilla's point is the kind of the internal regulation that's going on within the industry, and then you have that external regulation as well. And like, ideally, you would get to a point where the internal regulation is so good that the external regulation somehow meets it. But, you know, I mean, Tim, I obviously at Yield App, we're working a lot on meeting kind of regulatory requirements. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that at the moment?
Well, you know, just to add on kind of what Ash was saying, but, you know, we're always constantly kind of aware of, you know, what's coming, and it's, you know, it's a little bit of uncertainty, and it's I think it's almost you know, healthy what we've seen. So I mean, overall, these are financial instruments, and, you know, we have, you know, a lot of anonymous actors. There's so much happening, and so I don't think regulators have stifled innovation. Actually, I can't think of anything in the history of crypto that that regulators have actually shut down, that was like, I would say, innovation or positive innovation. So I think more, if you think about just 2017, I think probably more of us thought there would be more fallout than there's probably been. So yes, some of the headlines that we're seeing on a constant basis, but those are probably financial institutions that have probably pushed the boundaries a bit too far. So
right. Yeah, I mean, because you have innovation, really important, but then you have something that we were talking about earlier, which is mainstream adoption. Like, how do we get mum involved in cryptocurrency? And effectively, if you want to get mum involved in cryptocurrency, you do need some kind of external regulatory oversight to make her feel comfortable. I mean, Ash, I'm going to come to you because this is your kind of big point. But Camilla, just very quickly, I mean, because I know that you deal with a lot of data. I remember reading a report that the Defiant put out recently or a couple of months ago around kind of Uniswap uptake and wallets coming on board in volumes and so on. I mean, from the data that you've seen and that you've put together, where are we in terms of kind of retail adoption in both developed and developing markets?
It's in terms of adoption, like I said, definitely kind of still climbing. A number of wallets using DeFi applications. Like you look at all those charts, everything is going up still in a bear market. Or I don't know what this is, but a correction at least.
Mention the bear.
Yeah. let's not call him. Yeah, I mean, even when the market is down, you're seeing kind of increased adoption, which is a great sign. Because the space is pseudonymous. It's hard to say. It's hard to get data on like where exactly those users are coming from. But anecdotally, I've seen so many inspiring stories from people in emerging markets using DeFi to gain control of their savings and their wealth. So in Argentina, I've been interviewing people there and just like community managers there, and it's so interesting that their Argentine's first approach to crypto is now through stablecoins rather than Bitcoin. Like I was speaking with someone and they were like, oh yeah, I saw an ad for investing in DAI, and they had never heard about Bitcoin before, but they bought DAI first because in countries where there's so much volatility in the local currency and inflation, stable coins are a lot more attractive than crypto, like something like Bitcoin or ETH that's as volatile as their own currency. So and of course, that's what Yield App is trying to bring, right? That kind of just like passive earning, stability. And that's what's being so attractive in emerging markets. And also in emerging markets, interesting trends, the like play to earn games with NFTs, like Axie Infinity, that's kind of taking off in the Philippines, and people are actually making an income just like by playing these NFT games. Also airdrops is an interesting, like is having an interesting impact in these communities. I was speaking with this designer, I think in Iran, or I can't remember what he did, but he got a Uniswap and pulled together like airdrops.
Oh.
And because of that, he was able to like buy a ticket and move to South America, because he was saying, like Iran is like very restrictive in like what you can and can't do, and he wanted to go into crypto, but there's like a lot of regulation. There's and it's just very hard. And he was saying people save like all over their lives to like buy a plane ticket, and he was able to do that with like the airdrops that he got from like interacting with DeFi. So it's like anecdotal stuff, but it's like story after story of just like how this ecosystem is changing lives.
Right, it's powerful stuff. Eh? I mean, yeah, Ash was saying, how do we get mom into this? How do we get people out of those minus 0.01, or if you're in Denmark, I was speaking to somebody the other day, they're actually making you pay to keep your cash in the bank. How do we get them out and into DeFi?
Well, I think my favorite anecdote on this space is about a month ago, my mum, who's in her mid-70s, called me and said she desperately needed to get some Bitcoin. And I was like, well, it's Bitcoin, Mum. But in her mind, she'd amalgamated the fact that this is all a con and there's a load of money to be made into this kind of term. And the idea of my mum sort of tootling off to buy some Bitcoin was so terrifying. I was like, right, stop. I'll deal with this. Because there's still a real barrier to sort of entry of, first of all, understanding the technology, but also being able to circumvent the risks of like purchasing cryptocurrency in the first place, not doing something foolish like losing your private keys or giving them away. Or there's still, I think, before we even get to DeFi, some work to be done to educate the mainstream on how to safely, hold on to cryptocurrencies. I mean, I applaud what you guys have done with DeFi because you've really simplified it, made it really simple. My partner Lisa, who can't join us today because she's away, but she couldn't touch DeFi at all. It blew her mind. I kept trying to get her involved. And as soon as we became involved with you guys, she set up an account. It was easy. She did it. She was like, well, this is really simple, as opposed to that dizzying sort of technology we had before. And I think the sort of simplicity of trying to handhold people through this process is probably what's going to lead to a wider scale adoption beyond the sort of crypto diehards.
Right. Yield app is a gateway drug. I mean, Tim, actually on that developing market point, rather, I mean, I know that, we've been targeting some developing markets. I mean, do you have any thoughts around adoption in those parts of the world?
Well, I think Camila really hit it kind of spot on. I think the emergence of stable coins and obviously now with DeFi, I mean, it's a savings account, right, that anyone can have in their, any mobile device or any laptop, as long as they can keep their capital safe. So I think it's the non-risky kind of way to get exposure to crypto and crypto banking overall. So it has the most impact in the developing world, period. I mean, I've those that have lived in South America, I did at one point, and capital control is a real thing, and so when the government decides that capital's not leaving the country for whatever political reasons, it becomes quite challenging. And with digital currencies, they are borderless, and so while it's you're kind of circumventing the system, but people have lives and payments and all sorts of obligations that they have to kind of put at the forefront.
I mean, it's a very exciting prospect, isn't it? I mean, when I'm often explaining, what cryptocurrency and DeFi is, often to my boyfriend, who isn't particularly interested in the subject, but sometimes I'm trying to sort of explain how important it might really be. It's that potential for complete borderless global financial transactions. I mean, imagine a world in which anyone can send money to anybody, anywhere, in an instant, without any kind of borders. And the potential for financial inclusion, as Camilla was saying, some people in developing regions, wealth creation. I mean, it's really, really huge. Whether or not it can reach its potential, though, is the question I want to put to you all now, because we do have roadblocks, typically in the form of regulators, but also in the form of accessibility. I mean, where do you guys feel that the biggest kind of roadblocks are in DeFi? Let's start with Camilla.
Well, I think roadblocks right now are, on the one hand, like what you guys, I mean, what we've been talking about, how hard it is to use a lot of this stuff. And of course, applications like Yield App and others are making really good progress in making it easier and more accessible. But still, the large majority of DeFi applications are hard to use, and I think that's because it's you need to kind of get through that first barrier, which is getting from fiat to crypto to MetaMask or to like whatever non-custodial wallet. And that process is very confusing because not just like the like technicality of it, but also just like the concept of, oh, like I'm now in control of my money. Like I need to protect my private keys. I need to confirm transactions. I need to pay gas for transactions. Like all of these concepts are so foreign and so new to anyone who, you know, has transacted in Web2 their whole lives. It's like a whole new framework of dealing with money. So of course it's scary, it's complicated. So I think making that whole process easier is going to be like a major step towards adoption. And then there's just like technology is still in the very early stages. So things like scaling are still an issue. We have more and more volume and applications going into layer 2s and scaling solutions and other kind of non-Ethereum blockchains that make transactions cheaper and faster. But the reality is that most of DeFi is still on Ethereum. Ethereum is still the most or one of the most decentralized and secure blockchains. So I think like until Ethereum scales and provides just like cheap and fast transactions, that will still be a roadblock for adoption.
Yeah, that's a big point. How about you, Ash? Roadblocks and how we can overcome them in DeFi?
I think one of the biggest roadblocks for me in the past has just been the safety of DeFi. I used to do a lot of DeFi farming, and at one point kind of quite large sums of money, and I would often get up in the morning just thinking, is this the day I'm going to find there's been an exploit? That it's been hacked, that I've lost my LP tokens, and I think that's one of the biggest concerns. I mean, insurance is now, sort of coming into place in DeFi. There's companies offering, that you can insure those investments, which is really good. But I think for me, that's most people who don't understand this world just think, is it safe? It's safe in the bank, they think, and obviously it's been eroded completely the whole time. But the common man thinks it's safe to have my money in the bank. And at the moment, I couldn't, sort of say hands in the air that your money would be completely safe in DeFi. It would with certain players, but there is still a huge element of risk. And that risk is countered by the rewards. Obviously, there are some incredible, sort of APYs on offer on some of them. But I would say that the higher the APY, when they start to get ridiculous, the more you should think, actually, is this too good to be true? When you hear of people talking about, thousands of percent APY, clearly that can't be sustainable. So I think about finding a way to give people the comfort and safety that they can think, okay, I'm going to put a large portion of my hard-earned money into this and not wake up one morning like that meme and it's gone, the South Park meme. Right. And I think that's one of the biggest, along with everything Camilla was saying as well. I mean, I agree with all of that, but I think that's another aspect, is getting people to the point where they feel comfortable putting large sums of money to just earn passive income, good rates of passive income, sensible as opposed to ridiculous.
Right. So tackling accessibility and risk. Tim, your thoughts on roadblocks and how we can overcome them in the DeFi space?
Well, I think it's just the barrier to entry to even enter at this point. Like as far as crypto's actually come along, I mean, it hasn't. Someone was saying the other day, MetaMask is our, the best we got, and it's still like early beta software. But do you really think that people should hold a large percentage of their wealth in their web browser? And I think the answer is really kind of not yet. I don't think the base infrastructure just to tap on. So how do we, mainstream is at 50, 100 million people kind of really participating in DeFi. Then I think just the base crypto infrastructure still has a long ways to go.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the plus side, there is enormous potential, and that is proven by the continuing and growing TVL, which is in the billions, not the millions, just to clarify again from my mistake at the beginning. I think it's a really exciting time. I mean, for me personally, I continue to be amazed at the kind of innovations that are coming along. Things are a little bit slow, but healthy, as we've discussed. So, I think that we're looking at another bright period for DeFi, if maybe not quite as explosive as the summer that we saw last year. But I just want to wrap it up at this point. Thank my guests for joining us here at Fridays with Yield App. Thank you, Ash Pugh, New Kids on the Blockchain. Where can people find you, Ash?
We do a weekly YouTube show every Saturday on our YouTube channel, which is New Kids on the Blockchain, and you can also find us at newkidsontheblockchain.com. And I would say go and check out our documentary. It's a featured doco that's for free on our YouTube channel about the whole ICO, kind of how that whole thing happened, because history does have a tendency to repeat itself. So I think there's some sort of learnings to be had from that. But I agree with you. It's a very exciting time. If you've been in this space for any length of time, zoom out and you'll see that this is a tiny blip in things. The market will do this, but ultimately the technology is not going anywhere in a hurry.
Absolutely. And Camilla, where can people find you at the Defiant? Where can we find your excellent work?
Thank you. Well, head to the defiant.io, subscribe to the newsletter, visit our YouTube channel, and listen to the podcast. You can find it anywhere, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcast. So yeah, we really try to have our readers stay up to date with all the craziness that's happening in DeFi in an objective, no hype, no shill way, doing actual kind of professional journalism, which is much needed in this space. So come over and subscribe.
It really is. And I can speak to that. Tim, where can we find you?
Well, for our viewers out there that aren't know, just join us on Telegram, and of course yield.app. So thank you, Camilla. Really enjoyed the conversation today, and you too, Ash.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for all of our viewers for joining us. And we did have a very lively debate going on our stream. Somebody who says they're about to run out and buy some Bitcoin. So they'll be joining your mum, Ash, in that rush for Bitcoin. So thanks, everyone, and we will see you next time. Oh, the dogs are getting involved. Take care.
Bye.